we are about to break bread together in remembrance of the Passover supper that Messiah had with his disciples before he was offered up. So please listen to this video and take heed, and do not take the Passover remembrance in an unworthy manner. Warning: before taking Passover remembrance, please listen to this video. Do not take the Passover remembrance unworthily. Believers have historically identified baptism and the Master's Supper as the two ordinances given by the Master to symbolize the believer's union with Messiah. Baptism commemorates our identification with Messiah, a visual reminder of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahushua, the death of the old nature through the reception of Elohim's saving grace through Yahushua HaMashiach, known throughout the world as Jesus Christ, and the promise of our future hope when our mortal bodies will be raised incorruptibly for eternity. The Master's Supper reminds us of the means by which Elohim's salvation was secured on our behalf. The unleavened bread is a symbol of the perfection of the person of our Yahushua HaMashiach in his body, soul, and spirit. The fruit of the vine symbolizes covenant blood of an innocent sacrifice shed for the remission of the sins of the guilty. See Romans 3:21 through 26, Hebrews 2 verse 5 through 17, Hebrews 7 verse 27 through 28, Hebrews 9 verses 26 through 28, 1 Peter 3 verse 18. I am going to read those entire scriptures so that you will have this understanding even more, rather than just saying the scriptures. So we will begin with Romans 3, verses 21 through 26. But now, apart from the Torah, a righteousness of Elohim has been revealed, being witnessed by the Torah and the prophets. And the righteousness of Elohim is through belief in Yahushua HaMashiach, Messiah, to all and on all who believe. For there is no difference, for all have sinned and fall short of the esteem of Elohim, being declared right without paying by his favor through the redemption which is in Messiah, Yahushua, whom Elohim set forth as an atonement through belief in his blood to demonstrate his righteousness, because in his tolerance Elohim had passed over the sins that had taken place before, to demonstrate at the present time his righteousness, that he is righteous, and declares righteous the one who has belief in Yahushua. Hebrews 2nd chapter 5 through 17. For it is not to messengers that he has subjected the world to come, concerning which we speak, but somewhere one has witnessed, saying, What is man, that you remember him, or the Son of Man, that you look after him? You have made him a little lower than the messengers. You have crowned him with esteem and respect and set him over the works of your hands. You have put all in subjection on his feet. For in that he put all in subjection unto him, he left none that is not subjected to him. But now we do not yet see all subjected to him, but we do see him who is made for a little while lower than the messengers. And some Bibles say, or Torah says, lower than the angels. Yahushua, because of the suffering of death, crowned with esteem and respect, that by the favor of Elohim he should taste death for everyone. For it was fitting for him, because of whom all are, and through whom all are, in bringing many sons to esteem, to make the princely leader of their deliverance perfect through sufferings. For both he who sets apart and those who are being set apart are all of one. For which reason he is not ashamed to call them brothers, saying, I shall announce your name to my brothers in the midst of the congregation. I shall sing praise to you. And again, I shall put my trust in him. And again, see, I and the children whom Elohim gave me. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself similarly shared in the same, so that by means of his death he might destroy him having the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver those who throughout life were held in slavery by fear of death. For doubtless he does not take hold of messengers, but he does take hold of the seed of Abraham. So in every way he had to be made like his brothers, in order to become a compassionate and trustworthy high priest in matters related to Elohim, to make atonement for the sins of the people. For in what he had suffered himself being tried, he is able to help those who are tried. Hebrews 7, verses 27 through 28. Who does not need, as those high priests, to offer up slaughter offerings day by day, first for his own sins and then for those of the people. For this he did once for all, when he offered up himself. For the Torah appoints as high priests men who have weakness, but the word of the oath which came after the Torah appoints his Son, having been perfected forever. Hebrews 9, verses 26 through 28. For if so, he would have had to suffer often since the foundation of the world. But now he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the offering of himself. And as it awaits men to die once, and after this the judgment, so also the Messiah, having been offered once to bear the sins of many, shall appear a second time apart from sin, to those waiting for him unto deliverance. 1 Peter 3, verse 18. Because even Messiah once suffered for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to Elohim, having been put to death in deed and flesh, but made alive in the spirit. The Master's Supper, also called communion, demonstrates the doctrine of substitution. Messiah died for me. 1 Corinthians 11, verse 26. Baptism demonstrates the doctrine of identification. I died with Messiah. Romans 6, verses 3 through 4. Or do you not know that as many of us as were immersed in Messiah, Yahushua, were immersed into his death? We were therefore buried with him through immersion and to death, that as Messiah was raised from the dead by the esteem of the Father, so also we shall walk in newness of life. When Yahushua identified the bread and the fruit of the vine as his body and his blood, he spoke typologically. The bread did not become his body. The fruit of the vine did not become his blood. Rather, they represented the fullness of his sacrifice for those he came to redeem. How do we know? First, the Master's Supper has its origins in the Passover feast, a memorial event designed as a perennial reminder to the Hebrew Israelite Jews of Elohim's deliverance from bondage in Egypt. Yahushua command to receive the Master's Supper in remembrance of me established it as a memorial meal after the likeness of the Passover type. Second, the specificity of Yahushua's language points to a symbolical understanding of the Master's Supper. It is hard to imagine the disciples thinking that Yahushua, whilst physically sitting in their presence, literally entered the bread and the fruit of the vine. He did not say, "This bread becomes my body." Sitting before his disciples in his pre-glorified incarnate state, he said, "This is my body, this is my blood," though they did not fully understand what that moment meant until after the resurrection. They clearly understood the metaphorical nature of his language, much as they understood so many other metaphorical occurrences of biblical imagery. Examples: the Master is my rock, my shield, my fortress, my shepherd. Though receiving the Master's Supper is a symbolic act, it is nevertheless deeply meaningful. When Yahushua's followers participate in this celebratory meal, their prayerful, introspective reflection demonstrates their desire for and commitment to a continuing lifestyle of deepening devotion, communion, unity, trust, obedience, gratitude, and service. 1 Corinthians 10, verses 16 through 17 and 21, and also 1 Corinthians 11, 20 through 34, 1 Corinthians 10, verse 16 and 17. The cup of blessing which we bless, is it not a sharing in the blood of Messiah? The bread that we break, is it not a sharing in the body of Messiah? Because there is one bread, we who are many are one body, for we all partake of the one bread. Verse 21, you are not able to drink the cup of the master and the cup of demons. You are not able to partake of the table of the master and of the table of demons. The New Testament provides no blueprint for the frequency of participating in the Master's Supper. It was instituted as part of an annual event, the Passover. The apostles or Talmudists speak of the breaking of bread, which many interpret as a reference to the Master's Supper, as a daily act, Acts 2 verse 46, and a weekly celebration on the first day of the week, Acts 20 verse 7. Paul referred to the Master's Supper in a timeless way. As often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, 1 Corinthians 11:26, regardless of the frequency with which a congregation celebrates the Master's Supper, the meaning is the same. A time to remember anew the value and joy of Yahushua's sacrifice for us, his redeemed children. 1 Corinthians 11, verses 17 through 32. And in declaring this, I do not praise you, since you come together not for the better, but for the worse. For if in the first place I hear that when you come together as an assembly, there are divisions among you, and to some extent I believe it. For there have to be factions even among you, so that the approved ones might be revealed among you. So when you come together in one place, it is not to eat the Master's supper. For when you eat, each one takes his own supper first, and one is hungry and another is drunk. Have you not houses to eat and drink in? Or do you despise the assembly of Elohim and shame those who have not? What shall I say to you? Shall I praise you in this? I do not praise. For I received from the Master that which I also delivered to you, that the Master Yahushua in the night in which he was delivered up took bread, and having given thanks, he broke it and said, Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me. In the same way also, the cup after supper, saying, This cup is the renewed covenant in my blood. As often as you drink it, do this in remembrance of me. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the death of the Master until he comes. So that whoever should eat this bread or drink this cup of the Master unworthily shall be guilty of the body and blood of the Master. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. For the one who is eating and drinking unworthily eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the body of the Master. Because of this many are weak and sick among you, and many sleep. For if we were to examine ourselves, we would not be judged. But when we are judged, we are disciplined by the Master, that we should not be condemned with the world. So then, my brothers, when you come together to eat, wait for one another. And if anyone is hungry, let him eat at home, lest you come together for judgment, and the rest I shall set in order when I come. I am encouraging you to listen to this video before you partake of the Passover Remembrance with us. We give thanks unto our Father for what he has set up for us to remember this, not only at Passover time, but as often as we take this Passover remembrance. Yahuwah bless you going out, coming in. Yahuwah's countenance shine upon you and grant you peace. Hallelujah and amen.